This is BKWS 1130.
Vancouver weather, sunshine all weekend long.
Momentous weekend here for all people in British Columbia. The Vancouver Whitecaps face the Cosmos in New York. And yes, let's hear it for the Whitecaps.
Sun and rain, 'cause Whitecaps is our name.
In 1979, this was the place to be. Well, this was Empire Stadium back then. It was the home of the Vancouver Whitecaps. And in 1979, the Vancouver Whitecaps were the kings of the city, as well as the kings of soccer in North America. In fact, in many ways, their success that year sped up the building of BC Place Stadium, which completely changed the downtown sector forever. But first, the Whitecaps had to win the Soccer Bowl in 1979, and they did that against the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Whitecaps and the Rowdies meet far from home today. These are Whitecap fanatics. Last Saturday, Vancouver became a deserted village as everyone huddled indoors to watch our telecast of the Caps and the Cosmos. On a perfect September afternoon, Vancouver meets Tampa Bay in Soccer Bowl 79. Look out. A shot, a goal by Trevor Weinhardt. Vancouver has taken the lead. They've gotten the critical first goal. A veteran star in England has turned on that crowd of people who have come all the way across the continent. The Vancouver Whitecaps are the new champions of the North American Soccer League, and they earned it every step of the way.
Oh, wow. Wow, look at that. Oh, I nearly dropped
Did it almost
it.
fall off? Holy cow, it's heavy.
Is this the original? So this would be the first time I've held it since '79.
And for an extra 50 points, who handed you the trophy?
Henry Kissinger. Yes, all right.
I didn't know that. I was
He was
too
in the
young.
changing room as well afterwards. Actually, someone else that was there that didn't come into the chase was Mick Jagger. He was at the final.
Okay, this needs to be pointed out right now. Yes, that's Henry Kissinger, and yes, that's John Craven of the Whitecaps, but he and some of the other Caps had swapped jerseys with Tampa Bay players just before the trophy was handed out.
There is John Craven with the Rowdy shirt. You see, they've exchanged shirts, which is a tradition in soccer.
The Vancouver Whitecaps' first season in the North American Soccer League was 1974, and their first game was on a rainy afternoon at Empire Stadium. And Bob Lenarduzzi remembers that game because he was playing in it.
That's me. Sam Newsom in goal. And this is my slide tackle. See, I know it right from the header. Woof. Yeah, and I love that. For 3 years, we struggled. We got 17,000 our first game, but then after that, it was less than 5 on a regular basis. And then Tony Waiters comes along from England, and the team takes off.
Tony Waiters' first full season as the Whitecaps coach was 1978, and that's the year Vancouver began to take notice of this team because the Whitecaps were one of the best clubs in the NASL. They were thought to be a championship contender that year, but they lost to Portland in the playoffs. That was an upset.
We've got to improve the operation of the club from this season into next season.
And after that season, the Whitecaps made adjustments to the roster, and Waiters went with the go with what you know plan. He filled the entire team up with players from Canada and the UK.
And at first people didn't like it. They called us the English Mafia. Until we started playing with a bit of style and winning games, and then we became the Vancouver Whitecaps again.
He wasn't a yeller, but if he was not happy with what you were doing, you'd hear about it. If you didn't know where you needed to be, or if you weren't where you needed to be, then you could join him on the bench.
Of all those new players that Tony Waiters brought in 1979, the one that made an impact, surprisingly, was a 20-year-old striker from England named Carl Valentine, who took one look at Vancouver through the open north end of Empire Stadium and decided this should be his forever home.
Carl is developing fast. I'm tremendously pleased about Carl Valentine.
It's done quite a lot for my confidence, and I can't wait for next Friday to come, and try and get another goal.
And I remember it was a beautiful Sunday, Monday day, walking out Empire, and it was just, you was in dreamland, because I think that was, we trained there, and yeah, it was like training on concrete, but we didn't know. But to train there every day, and have the view of the mountains, to play there and have that same view, it was just spectacular. And as I said before, even on rainy days, the atmosphere that the fans created in the stadium was just made it really special.
Allan Ball for Vancouver to Bob Lenarduzzi. Valentine breaking for the middle, goes after the ball. Valentine getting set, back to Lenarduzzi. His shot, it's in!
You know, the Whitecaps, I remember doing cross promotions with the Lions and the Canucks. We used to do a lot of that. But you know, at that stage, you know, we were the team. You know, even though it was kind of a hockey town, the Lions were doing well. Everyone was talking about the Whitecaps.
In the first 4 years of the Whitecaps' existence, that was not the case. The Canucks were the #1 team in town, the Lions were #2, and the Whitecaps were that team you went and saw at Empire Stadium if the weather was nice. But in 1978, the year before they won the championship, everything changed.
And now it's Hector, and they dribble it in, it's a goal!
They started winning a lot on the field, and they also became pop stars.
It's a fairly easy song to remember, so we're churning this out, and it comes out in '78, and we were on such a good roll in '78 that it actually got to #1 in the charts. Like CKLG was the station at the time, and it's #1, and it's like, how can this be? Like, when none of us have good voices.
Coming up, the magical summer of 1979, when the Whitecaps had all of Vancouver singing their praises.
'Cause Whitecaps is our name.
This is the classic starting 11 for the Vancouver Whitecaps of 1979. Talent all over the field. And not only that, there was also a great character in Willie Johnston.
I'm really looking forward to it because it's a challenge to come 6,000, 7,000 miles to play football. And people know about you, and they've heard about you, put it that way, but they've never seen you play. So you've got to go out and perform and do well, and I hope I do well.
Willie Johnston was just unpredictable, wasn't he? You know, and he just, you know, they just lifted the team.
Willie was one of the most popular Whitecaps, producing memorable moments like this playoff goal. But his "I'm only here for the beer" corner kick in San Jose, that would have been a viral moment had it happened 45 years later.
Well, I always remember that because it was just so iconic. Because the opposing fan asked him, was he thirsty? He says, yeah, he had a drink, takes a kick, and Peter Daniels gets up and scores a winner. We were down to 10 men. You know, how does that happen?
The crowd says, are you thirsty, Willie? I says, oh, I'm dying of thirst. It was warm, it was really warm. So he gave me a can of beer. Didn't drink the beer. But we scored for the corner, so it must have worked.
Exactly. The key acquisition for Vancouver came exactly at the halfway point of the season. World Cup champion and England legend Allan Ball. Without him, the Whitecaps likely would not have won the championship.
It could be the catalyst that could put this team over the hump, as it were. They've been, even at 10-5, been struggling a bit, and at the risk of putting pressure on you, you could be the man to turn it around.
Well, I really hope so. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed on that.
Allan Ball going in with Willie Johnston. Here's Ball setting up, gets a drive, scores!
Oh, what a shot! And that dipped beautifully.
When it was announced that Allan Ball's coming, you're kind of in shock. You're kind of like, why? But, I mean, give Tony credit. He felt we needed something more because he was not looking at having a good playoff run. He was looking at winning a championship.
Allan Ball accepts the pass into the middle. Parsons goes up for it. Lenarduzzi, a shot, he scores!
He was the type of player, despite his physique, that demanded respect. Not demanded respect, got respect away from the pitch and certainly on the pitch. He was the general in the middle of the park. Everything went through him. And to a certain extent, Tony obviously realized that as well, because we changed our tactics. If he wanted the ball, then give it to him.
You knew you was getting a top player, but in them days, you know, when you're around 30, you're kind of a little bit over the hill, or maybe getting to the end of your career. But wow, first day of training, you couldn't get near the fella.
Allan Ball, number 23, setting up for the penalty kick. He scores! Allan Ball, and the Whitecaps lead 2-1.
Every good story needs a hero and a villain. And in 1979, the New York Cosmos were the villains. They were the glamour team of North America, known worldwide because they basically assembled an all-star team.
They were owned by Warner Brothers, and I don't think cost was an issue for them, and they were going for it.
The Cosmos own most of the big-name players in NASL, but the Whitecaps own them. They played them twice in the regular season. At Empire Stadium, Vancouver beat New York 4-1 in June. Then in July, the Whitecaps traveled to New York and won both the game and the fights. Yes, the fights.
Oh, that was a classic. That was a classic. There was a lot of fights as well. Okay, but that all stemmed from Willie Johnston and the player that was marking him, Eskandarian. They played against each other at the World Cup in '78. After they're rolling around on the ground, like Canalia comes from where he's at up front, and he's kicking. Willie's on the ground. I think you can see it in the photo. Willie's on the ground, and he's kicking him. And I go in only to just get him off. I don't want to fight. So I'm pulling him back. Remember what Craven did? I pulled him back. He spun around, and John Craven, who had just been subbed in, came along and whack, right? And he cut him over the... And so they both get sent off. And he hasn't even touched the ball yet, John. He came on and is off. That game, I think, actually propelled the popularity of the club, because you beat the Cosmos. Maybe we didn't beat them in a fight, but at least we stood up to them, and we won 4-2. And you know who else was on the pitch? Pele.
Really?
Pele was like, no, love, love, love.
Good move there, moving at the side. Nesson getting set, into Parsons. They score.
So the Whitecaps finished the regular season with a record of 20 wins and 10 losses. They had decent scoring, but more importantly, Vancouver had the best defense in the league. And they won their division, which meant they won a trophy, the first of two they would get in 1979.
We relied on all 11 players that were on the pitch, knowing exactly where they needed to be, when they needed to be, and we didn't deviate from that, and we were a hard team to play against.
Vancouver easily beat Dallas in round one of the playoffs. Now, it should be said the NASL rules didn't allow for ties, and in the playoffs they were best-of-3 series. But the third game was a half-hour mini-game, which the Whitecaps needed to win in the second round to beat the LA Aztecs, who were led by Dutch legend Johan Cruyff.
I always remember because I shook his hand, and when I shook his hand, he went, "You are a good player." I was like, man, Cruyff.
Is that the truth?
Yeah.
You're making that.
No.
The semifinals was another date with the New York Cosmos, a best-of-3 that started at Empire Stadium. And as you can see, it was the most popular ticket in Vancouver.
Cosmos are going to come here and they're just going to play the same as they did when they came here a few months ago. And, we're going to play our normal game, so they're going to be two cracking games.
The Whitecaps won the first game at home 2-0, but the return game in New Jersey provided the most dramatic action in NASL history. The Cosmos needed a shootout win in Game 2, and in this league it wasn't penalty kicks. The 5-player shootout was basically players running at a goalie on what was a fabricated breakaway. But they only had 5 seconds to get a shot off, and that's a key point, because after the mini-game was tied, there was another shootout. Both Bob Lenarduzzi and Carl Valentine scored in that one, but the final Cosmos shooter, he didn't get his shot away in time.
No, I don't think he got the shot off in time.
No, it's no good. Vancouver has won. They'll go to the Soccer Bowl next week.
Ironically, the final was in the Cosmos house, Giant Stadium in New Jersey. And in that game against Tampa Bay, Vancouver's vaunted defense and goaltending, Phil Parks was the goalie, proved to be decisive. But it took 2 goals by Trevor Wymark to give Vancouver the trophy.
There's Allan Ball getting in the middle of Wymark. The shot is in. It's a goal. Wymark scoring his second goal of the day. Unofficially, the clock has run out. It's all over. The Vancouver Whitecaps are the new champions of the North American Soccer League, and they earned it every step of the way.
After the break, Vancouver throws the Whitecaps a party with 100,000 guests, and the Village begins its journey to becoming a world-class city. On the plane ride home from New York, the Whitecap players were told there would be a celebration in the city, but they had no idea what was awaiting them.
Jack Leonard came through the plane to hand us the parade routes. Parade? Like, hopefully there's going to be enough people there. And sure enough, we come back and it's just a sea of people.
Willie Lenarduzzi, welcome home. All right, John, how are you? Isn't this fantastic? This is beautiful. I said to you last week that I was looking forward to coming back and being a part of the championship team. And now I've fulfilled my ambitions. It's beautiful. Fantastic feeling.
Yeah, and I was, afterwards I was thinking, well, how did it's not like internet or anything, how did all these people know? Because it was so unexpected. It just made it even more special.
Here they're all pro the Whitecaps. It's a very emotional, wonderful moment for us.
At least 10,000 fans lining just these several blocks of the parade route. And it may not be the longest parade or the most elaborate one that Vancouver has ever had, but it will definitely be the most emotionally exciting.
We got wee Willie Johnston, we got wee Willie Johnston, we got wee Willie Johnston on the wing.
After driving around downtown in open-top cars, the Whitecaps parade ended at Robson Square, which at that time wasn't finished. But that is where they got to speak to the crowd.
And I think, without doubt, it was shown up yesterday at the final whistle who the greatest supporters in North America are. This is a great side, this is a great city, this is a great crowd of supporters, the best in North America. You are the #1 fans, and we are the #1 team!
I was the last one up. There was nothing left to say. Everybody else spoke eloquently. There was nothing left to say. So, first thing that come into my head.
Do you remember what you said?
You are the #1 fans, and we are the #1 team.
What about your reaction to these people over here?
Fantastic! This is what it's all about.
The Whitecaps win wasn't the only thing that galvanized Vancouver. Something that was said on the ABC broadcast of the championship final, which wasn't meant to be an insult, but was perceived as one, also galvanized Vancouver. The term village was taken as a New York City-sized insult.
These are Whitecap fanatics. Last Saturday, Vancouver became a deserted village.
That's another thing that happened that was like a rallying cry for all of British Columbia. What? You're calling us a village? And I mean, when you hear the comment, he didn't intend it to be disrespectful, but he touched a nerve, obviously. And but yeah, so I did a commercial for Rogers Golden Syrup. And you remember what the tagline?
Rogers Golden Syrup. You can't even get it in the village of New York.
Can't even get it in the village of New York.
Now, back in 1979, everything was located at the PNE. The Canucks played at the Coliseum, the BC Lions and the Whitecaps played at Empire Stadium. And even though Empire Stadium really wasn't that old, it was getting rather decrepit. And because the Whitecaps won in 1979, the idea of a new stadium picked up steam.
The great victory of the Whitecaps points out the importance of our having a new stadium in Vancouver. And we are going to have a new stadium. I give you that promise.
This is where Paul Manning enters the story. He was the man chosen by the provincial government to lead the building of a new stadium.
And of course, when they had that parade, when they came to town after winning the North American Championship, it added to the pressure to build a new stadium. The success of the Whitecaps, you always had Lions fans, but the success of the Whitecaps was a lot of the impetus for the stadium.
So basically, the Whitecaps' win in '79 kept the governments from dragging its feet on a new stadium. Now, the PNE wanted to keep the Whitecaps and Lions there, and they proposed something called the multiplex. but the provincial government, it wanted to revitalize downtown Vancouver, and that's why BC Place ended up in Yaletown.
By moving the stadium downtown, or not that multiplex and some of the others weren't good proposals. We had one proposal from a guy that wanted to have a floating stadium so they could take it around all the communities. But there were some really good, worthwhile ones to look at. But for a lot of reasons, it made sense to go downtown. And when you look at it, the stadium went downtown. Expo came in. As part of getting the land for the stadium and for Expo, we also got the tunnel underneath the city. So when the rapid transit line came in, you had already the connection that you could go through.
Perhaps the most remarkable thing about BC Place was the cost. Okay, it was in the early 80s, but it was $60 million to buy the land and $125 million to build the stadium itself.
Essentially, the builders had to come and sign a bond that they would build it for a certain price, and anything over that they absorbed. It was a lot of money back then, but look at what $200 million gets you now. Maybe 10 homes in the university district. Interestingly enough, when the first sporting event we had in the stadium was the Whitecaps with 55,000 people.
Tonight, the first sporting event in the stadium at BC Place. A sellout crowd on hand for the Vancouver Whitecaps hosting the Seattle Sounders.
In for Beardsley. Gonna get the shot away. Yes, he does!
Bob, you are here tonight. Your thoughts on coming into this building?
Well, it seems a long way from 1974. If someone had told me at that point in time that I'd been playing in front of 60,000 people in a new dome stadium in Vancouver in a Whitecaps uniform, I'd have said they were crazy.
And I'm not trying to take away from any of the other guys, but the fact that you're from here and it happens when it never looked like it was going to happen, it was a real treat.
Now, without a Whitecaps championship in 1979, BC Place Stadium would have likely been built anyway, but perhaps not as quickly as it was. However, building it helped completely remake Yaletown from this to this. And of course, the Olympics and World Cup of Soccer, both men's and women's, needed BC Place to arrive in Vancouver. So it's not really that much of a stretch to say the 1979 Whitecaps legacy in Vancouver extends beyond just soccer.
When you look at the players that we played with and how good that team was, because you don't realize it at the time, that team could have played, I think, almost anywhere at the time, because we had a great coach, great coaching staff, and a tremendous squad of players that could have played, I think, anywhere in the world at that time. So it was a special year.